President Cyril Ramaphosa will today at 6 p.m. respond to Public Protector Patricia Mkhwebane's findings that he deliberately misled Parliament on the 500,000 rand donation received from Bosasa for his ANC presidency CR17 campaign. In a report released on Friday, Mkhwebane found that Ramaphosa had violated the executive member's ethics code and has called for him to be disciplined by Parliament. Well, our reporter Patricia Visagie is tracking that story for us. She joins us now from Pretoria. Patricia, much anticipation now as we gear up for that presidential address, which is due in less than 30 minutes' time right now.
Well, certainly, I think it's what the nation has been waiting for, to hear exactly what the country's first citizen will be saying in response to that damning report that was tabled against him on Friday by Public Protector Advocate Patricia Mkhwebane. And as you've just highlighted, of course, I think the 2 points that stand out in that particular report is the fact that she finds that he deliberately misled Parliament, and that way he, of course, then violated his executive ethics code. And I think the other burning issue is her finding on her actually saying that the way that money that was donated, the 500,000 rands that was donated by Bosasa, the way the money was channeled between accounts, that raises suspicions of money laundering. And you would know that in her remedial actions, she is actually referring that particular matter to the NPA to probe further whether there was an element of money laundering that may have taken place between the CR17 campaign and the President's foundation. So, of course, today we expect the President to give us his side of the story, and we more or less, I think, know how he feels about that report. He has already, before the findings, tabled, of course, or rather, in response, also issued his a report, an affidavit that he handed into the public protector. And in that report, he is obviously denying this, saying that he bared no knowledge of the 500,000 rands that was donated by Bosasa towards his campaign. He makes it also very clear that before the process actually unfolded to, raise funds for his campaign, he had an agreement with his campaign managers to not disclose money that is donated to the campaign, to him, to not share that information with him. So he doesn't know what really happened in terms of how the money was raised, who donated money to the account, saying that the version that he delivered before Parliament was correct, because he didn't know that former Bosasa boss Gavin Watson had donated that 500,000 rands to his campaign, saying that he was honest when he gave his side of the story. He also goes a step further to say in her final report, the public protector did not consider his side of the story. Her report was one-sided, and she did not really, table matters fairly. So, of course, he then says that he does not agree with her. He did not violate his executive's code of ethics. In short, also going to a step further, saying that her report is in fact unlawful, or rather her findings are unfounded, and he feels that they are unlawful. And it really goes to the heart of the money laundering issue. The President, again, in his report, stating that the public protector did not have the jurisdiction to actually probe the issue of money laundering. It is not within her scope of mandate and powers to actually look into that matter. So right now, of course, we would expect the President to give his side of the story. And I think the highlight is he going to actually refer a report for judicial review or not? That is what we all expect, but we'll have to hear and say and see what he is actually responding and what exactly his action plan is in response to that report.
Patricia, what do you think are going to be the repercussions for President Cyril Ramaphosa's very carefully crafted image and his new dawn concept of clean governance and moral and ethical leadership that we saw become a signature issue during his election campaign?
Well, I think since that report has been tabled, there's been a lot of questions around, in particular, how exactly these findings would affect his integrity and his credibility as a president. In particular, if you look at the big task that he has to root out, in particular, corruption and other unlawful elements in the country. And we have seen, ordinary South Africans really raising their views, saying, but if he is actually now accused or stands accused by a Chapter 9 institution of also having violated his executive's ethics code, and the big issue, if there are already suspicions that his campaign may have been involved in money laundering, then how serious can the public then take his calls for high ethics, his calls for clean governance, and how serious can we really take the whole Tuma Mina campaign? But we have to also be fair here and also understand that that's just a report. We don't know all the factors here. We'll have to see what really comes out and what are the other probes. Of course, you would know that opposition parties are also already calling for action against the president, and they also want him to be held accountable before Parliament. So for us to really, at this stage, to really determine what will happen or not is very early, and we can't ignore the element of politics that is also possibly at play here. You would know that the public protector has been accused, widely so, of perhaps being involved in factional politics. Some even going as far as saying that she might be a political gun that is used, to, of course, further certain political points within the factional politics that is currently playing out. And then there's all the other issues as well relating to the issue with Pravin Gordhan. We know that tomorrow there is the Constitutional Court judgment into the APSA issue, and then her report on the Estina dairy farm probe. All of those have actually also raised serious questions on her credibility and whether her probes are prudent and whether they actually are actually within the scope of the law. You'd know that even herself is at loggerheads with opposition parties who are also calling for her head for some of the findings in her other investigations. And as a result, you have people questioning whether she is ethical and whether she is perhaps part of the political game that is at play here. So it is, I think, a whole conundrum that rests within the powers of the president and the fight between him and the office of the public protector. How it will play out, we'll have to just wait and see where exactly is this going. Will he be held accountable before Parliament, because that is part of the remedial actions that the Speaker of Parliament perhaps look into his conduct and see if they can take action in the National Assembly against him to hold him accountable, or will this matter go for judicial review and perhaps take a different turn there? So we'll have to see. But for now, I think let's give it back to a studio, as in a short while the briefing will have to start.
Patricia Visagie, there, our senior reporter, coming to us from the Union Building, sunset now, and the president is due to speak in just about 15 minutes' time.